The Galactic Council had judged 1,000 species before humanity. Some were uplifted. Some were erased. Some were quietly locked away where they could never trouble the galaxy again. When humans stood before the Council, they expected begging. They expected threats. They expected fear. What they didn't expect was a smile. The verdict was swift and unanimous. Earth would be banished. A permanent barrier would seal the human star system, cutting it off from the galaxy forever. The Council believed they had chosen mercy. They believed they had built an unbreakable cage. They were wrong. Because humans don't break cages. They leave them. The Great Hall of the Citadel of Worlds was built to remind every species of how small they truly were. It floated at the exact gravitational center of the galaxy, an impossible structure suspended in folded space, so vast it generated its own gravity well. Rivers of light flowed through its transparent walls as stars drifted slowly beyond, distant and uncaring. Within its circular tiers sat representatives of more than 2,000 sentient species, beings of flesh, crystal, plasma, metal, and forms that defied simple classification. They had gathered here for 1,000,000 years to decide the fate of the galaxy. Today, they were deciding the fate of one world. The humans stood alone at the center of the chamber. Ambassador Elena Vasquez kept her posture straight, her hands clasped calmly behind her back. At 53, streaks of silver threaded through her dark hair, and the lines around her eyes spoke of decades spent in negotiation rooms far smaller than this one. She wore a simple black suit, unadorned, practical, chosen deliberately. No symbols. No weapons. No attempts to impress. Behind her stood 4 other humans, advisors, translators, observers. They looked almost painfully fragile beneath the towering gaze of the Council. Their gravity felt heavier here, pressing down on their shoulders, reminding them that this place had crushed civilizations far older than Earth. High Arbiter Thessan watched them from his elevated dais. The Corvith Arbiter unfolded his 4 arms slowly, his chitinous frame glinting beneath the chamber's light. His compound eyes reflected the humans back at themselves, a dozen fractured images of a species that had not yet learned its place. Humanity of Earth, Thessan's voice echoed, layered with harmonic translators that carried his words into every known language. You stand before the Galactic Council to receive judgment. Elena met his gaze without blinking. We were told this was a welcoming ceremony, she said evenly. A celebration of first contact. A ripple of sound passed through the hall. Some species emitted laughter. Others produced tones of pity or quiet disdain. The Sand's mandibles clicked together in something between amusement and contempt. You were told what was necessary to bring you here, Thessan replied. Nothing more. With a gesture, the air above the chamber shimmered. Holographic images burst into existence. Fire. Screams. Cities collapsing beneath nuclear light. Humans killing humans. The images shifted faster and faster, trenches filled with bodies, mass graves, mushroom clouds blooming over once living cities. Names flashed briefly in human languages before vanishing again. Wars, genocides, terror attacks, centuries of bloodshed compressed into seconds. You have been observed for 300 of your years, Thessan continued. Your history catalogued. Your behavior analyzed. Your potential assessed. The images paused on a single frame, Earth, blue and fragile, suspended in darkness. You are a dangerous species. Elena did not look away. You do not merely fight when threatened, the Arbiter went on. You fight for resources. For belief. For pride. You are capable of love, art, and remarkable creativity, yes. But you are also capable of destruction on a scale that exceeds any species we have encountered in our 1,000,000-year history. Another Arbiter rose, its crystalline form chiming as it spoke. Peace maintained for 2 centuries is insignificant. Our youngest member species has known stability for 50,000 years. We have changed, Elena said. Her voice did not waver. Earth has been unified for 200 years. We have not waged a major war in that time. 200 years is a breath, Thessan replied coldly. A pause between violences. The hologram shifted again. Human expansion into space. Mars colonies. Orbital habitats. The first faster-than-light vessel breaking free of the solar system. You adapt too quickly, Thessan said. You spread aggressively. You consume without restraint. And now, you have developed the means to leave your cradle. He leaned forward, all four arms resting on the edge of the dais. We will not allow you to bring your chaos to the galaxy. Elena felt her heart accelerate, but her face remained calm. What are you saying? The High Arbiter's compound eyes fixed on her. The decision of the Galactic Council is unanimous, Thessan declared. Earth and its solar system will be quarantined. A permanent folded space barrier will surround your star. Nothing will enter. Nothing will leave. The hall fell silent. One of Elena's advisors shifted behind her, breath hitching. Another clenched his fists. Elena raised a single finger, stopping them without turning around. Forever? She asked. Forever, Thessan confirmed. Your species will live or die within the boundaries of its own system. This is mercy. Others argued for your extinction. Elena absorbed the words. Then she nodded. I have questions, she said. Thessan hesitated. Ask, he said at last. How does the barrier work? Elena continued. Its specifications. Its limitations. Confusion rippled through the council. Why would you need to know this? An arbiter demanded. If we are to be imprisoned, Elena replied calmly, we deserve to understand our prison. The High Arbiter studied her for a long moment. At last, he inclined his head. The specifications will be provided. Thank you, Elena said. She paused, then added, one more thing. Thessan's mandibles clicked. You test our patience. Give us 10 years, Elena said. The chamber erupted in sound. 10 years, Thessan repeated slowly. For what purpose? To prepare, Elena said. To mourn. To explain to our children why the stars are gone. Her eyes swept the hall. You are taking everything from us. The least you can give us is time. The arbiters conferred in low, layered voices. Suspicion warred with disdain. At last, Thessan spoke again. 10 years, he said. No expansion beyond your system. Any violation will result in immediate enforcement. Elena bowed her head slightly. Thank you for your mercy. As the human delegation was escorted from the chamber, High Arbiter Thessan watched Elena Vasquez go. She did not look broken. She did not look afraid. She looked prepared. And that, for the first time in a very long while, made him uneasy. The human diplomatic vessel Aquila slipped away from the Citadel of Worlds without ceremony. No escorts. No farewell signals. No word spoken beyond the carefully scripted formalities required by galactic protocol. From the outside, it looked exactly as the Council expected, a defeated species returning home to its cage. Inside, Ambassador Elena Vasquez finally allowed herself to exhale. The moment the Citadel vanished into folded space behind them, she dismissed her advisors. There were protests, quiet ones, confused ones, angry ones, but she overruled them all with a single look. Go, she said. I'll call you when I'm ready. When the doors slid shut, Elena stood alone in her quarters for a long moment, listening to the faint hum of the ship's systems. Her hands, so steady in the council chamber, trembled just slightly now. Not from fear. From relief. She crossed the room and activated a privacy field, then initiated a secure quantum channel key to a signal that did not officially exist. The screen shimmered. General Marcus Webb appeared, his image projected in soft blue light. He was still wearing his uniform, despite the late hour back on Earth. Deep lines etched his face, but his eyes were sharp, alert. Well, he asked. Elena smiled. They chose banishment. Webb closed his eyes for half a second, then nodded. Unanimous? Without hesitation, she said. They never even considered an alternative. How long? 10 years. That made Webb sit up straighter. You got them to agree to that? They think it's mercy, Elena replied. They think it's harmless. A slow, dangerous smile spread across the general's face. Then Phase Zero worked. Elena leaned against the desk, folding her arms. They gave us the barrier specifications, too. Webb let out a low breath. Of course they did. Overconfidence is consistent across all advanced species, apparently. They don't believe anyone beneath their technological threshold can surprise them, Elena said. They've forgotten what desperation can motivate. Good, Webb said. Because desperation is something we're very good at. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Through the viewport behind Elena, stars stretched into thin lines as the ship accelerated for home. So many stars. So many worlds humanity had barely begun to touch. We have 10 years, Webb said quietly. That's not long. It's enough, Elena replied. If we don't waste a single second. Webb studied her carefully. You're certain this will work? Elena thought of Theson's eyes. The arrogance. The certainty. The assumption that humans would mourn, rage, and then quietly accept their fate. Yes, she said. Because they're planning for who we were. She straightened, her diplomatic mask slipping fully away now. They think we're going to spend 10 years preparing to die in a box, Elena continued. But we're going to spend 10 years learning how to leave the box entirely. Webb nodded slowly. Then I'll activate the council. Not the public one, Elena said. The real one. The general's expression hardened. Project Exodus? Immediately. Webb hesitated. Once we start this, there's no going back. No partial success. Either we move everyone, or we doom them. Elena met his gaze. We were doomed the moment they decided our future without us, she said. Now we choose our own. Another pause. Then Webb nodded. Understood. I'll wake the physicists. The engineers. The archivists. The artists too, Elena added. Webb raised an eyebrow. We're not just saving bodies, she said softly. We're saving a civilization. A flicker of pride crossed Webb's face. I'll make the call. The screen faded. Elena remained standing, staring at her reflection in the darkened viewport. For the first time since entering the Citadel, she let the smile grow. They had looked at her and seen a beaten diplomat. They had not seen a strategist. They had not seen a species that had survived ice ages, plagues, extinction events, and itself. They had given humanity time. That was the mistake. Elena turned back to the console and began recording her official report to Earth, carefully measured words about loss, exile, and dignity in defeat. The Council's observers would read it. Their drones would record the grief that followed. Let them. When she finished, she ended the transmission and opened a second file, encrypted beyond anything the Council understood. Project Exodus, Phase 1. Objective, total species survival. Constraint, no detection. Solution, do not fight the cage. Leave it. Elena saved the file and closed her eyes. 10 years. Humanity had done more with less. For the first 3 years after the verdict, the Galactic Council watched Earth closely. Observation drones slipped silently through the outer reaches of the solar system, their sensors drinking in every signal, every fluctuation of energy. Nothing escaped their notice, or so they believed. What they saw satisfied them. Earth mourned. Crowds filled the streets of human cities, holding candles, banners, and fading dreams of the stars. Leaders spoke of dignity and acceptance. Artists painted empty skies and unreachable constellations. Music carried a quiet grief that echoed across the planet. To the Council, it looked like surrender. High Arbiter Thessan reviewed the reports with growing confidence. Human expansion had halted. Ship construction slowed. Long-range communications fell silent. In the 4th year, the colonies were abandoned. Mars went dark first, transport ships carrying people and equipment back to Earth. Then Europa. Then Titan. One by one, the outposts beyond Earth's gravity well were dismantled and left empty. They are retreating, Thessan announced to the Council. The psychological pressure has broken them. Some arbiters expressed mild pity. Others felt only relief. No one questioned the data. None of the drones saw beneath Earth's crust. None of them noticed the hollowed asteroids drifting unchanged in the belt. None of them understood that what looked like grief was camouflage. As far as the Galactic Council was concerned, humanity was learning its place. And humanity was counting down the days. Deep beneath Earth's surface, the world was anything but quiet. Miles below continents and oceans, hidden behind layers of rock no Council sensor could penetrate, the real work had begun. Dr. Sarah Kim stood before a wall of equations, her eyes bloodshot, her hands moving automatically as she adjusted the holographic display. Time had become meaningless down here. Days blurred together, measured only by failed simulations and rare moments of breakthrough. "Run it again," she said. The model shifted, space folding, not forward, not backward, but sideways. The simulated ship did not collide with the barrier. It slipped out of normal space entirely. "It still works," her assistant whispered. "Every time." "The Council built a perfect wall," Sarah said. "In one dimension." Human physics had reached a different conclusion. Reality wasn't a single sheet, it was layered. Normal space was just a page everyone agreed to read. Humans had learned how to turn the page. If the theory was wrong, the test pilots would vanish forever. No one volunteered. They were assigned, and they went anyway. Elsewhere, engineers carved out asteroids in the belt, leaving their exteriors untouched while hollowing their cores into cities of steel and light. To Council drones, they were dead rocks drifting in predictable orbits. Inside, they were arcs. Cryogenic chambers were perfected. Knowledge was etched into crystal that would outlast stars. DNA vaults filled with seeds, embryos, and entire ecosystems waited in silence. Humanity was not packing a suitcase. It was packing a world. And while the Council watched the surface of Earth grow quiet, the species it had judged dangerous was preparing to do something it had never imagined. Leave without breaking a single rule. Exactly 1 hour later, the barrier activated. Folded space collapsed inward around Sol, forming a flawless shell of containment that no ship, signal, or particle could penetrate. It was elegant. Absolute. Final. The Galactic Council watched the process with satisfaction. High Arbiter Thessan observed the sealed system from his chamber, reviewing the confirmation data as it streamed in. The barrier held perfectly. No breaches. No anomalies. "Scan the system," he ordered. The drones obeyed. They swept across the solar system in precise patterns, their sensors combing every orbit, every shadow. They found Earth blue, rotating, unchanged. They found the Moon. Mars. Jupiter's moons. The asteroid belt. No ships. No transmissions. No life signs. Confusion crept into Thessan's thoughts. "Increase resolution," he said sharply. The scans deepened. Still nothing. Cities stood intact but silent. Stations drifted empty. Even the background noise of human communication was gone, as if someone had muted an entire species. "This is incorrect," Thessan murmured. A junior analyst spoke hesitantly. "High Arbiter, the human population registers at 0. Silence filled the chamber. "They cannot simply disappear," Thessan said. "They lack the technology." But the data did not change. The barrier held an empty cage. For the first time in a million years, the Galactic Council had enforced a sentence, too late. And somewhere far beyond normal space, humanity was already on its way. Panic followed. Search fleets were launched within days, fanning out from the sealed solar system in widening spirals. The Council scoured nearby stars, empty systems, deep space corridors, anywhere 15 billion beings might have fled. They found nothing. Weeks became years. Years became decades. The mystery of humanity slowly lost its urgency. The galaxy was vast, and history was filled with vanished species. Most were eventually written off as extinct, another cautionary footnote in Council archives. The barrier around Earth remained. It became a monument. Young diplomats toured it during training, learning how decisively the Council acted when faced with a dangerous civilization. Military academies cited it as a perfect example of containment over extermination. High Arbiter Thessan lived out the rest of his long life convinced the humans had perished somewhere in the dark between stars. He never discovered otherwise. 300 years passed. Generations rose and fell across Council space. Borders shifted. Trade routes changed. The name Earth became an obscure historical reference, interesting, but irrelevant. Until a mining ship reached a system no one cared about. And discovered a structure that should not exist. The Vorthans specialized in places everyone else avoided. Captain Grin had built his career on that simple truth. Dead systems, unstable stars, radiation-soaked regions. If a place was marked worthless in Council databases, it was usually hiding something valuable. The red dwarf ahead of his ship barely registered as a star. No habitable worlds. No trade lanes. No reason for anyone to be here. Long-range scans clear, the navigator reported. No signs of intelligent life. Grin nodded. Then let's. The words died in his throat. A structure drifted into view as the ship rounded the third planet. It was massive. A space station, easily 5 kilometers across, hung in orbit like a quiet sentinel. Traffic lights blinked along its hull. Ships moved in and out of its docks, dozens of them, from designs Grin had never seen before. That's impossible, the navigator whispered. Scan it, Grin said sharply. The sensors screamed warnings, recalculating over and over. Power levels rivaled major Council hubs. Shield signatures were sophisticated, too sophisticated for an unregistered station. And the markings? Grin asked. The comms officer stared at his console. Language not recognized. Running translation. A pause. Translation complete, the ship's computer announced. The glowing letters on the station's hull resolved into meaning. Welcome to Haven Station. Human Concordat Trading Post 7. The bridge went silent. Humans? Grin breathed. That's not possible. They were banished. His first instinct screamed danger. Turn us around, he ordered. Now. The Vorthan ship fled at maximum burn, carrying with it panic, confusion, and the single most destabilizing discovery the Galactic Council had faced in 3 centuries. Because the humans weren't gone. They weren't hiding. They were trading. And they weren't alone. The Council fleet arrived at Haven Station with weapons armed and shields flaring. They expected fortifications. Defense platforms. A military response to match the threat reports pouring in from the Vorthan expedition. What they found was a marketplace. Ships of dozens of designs filled the surrounding space, long, thin vessels built for low gravity, bulky, modular craft designed by machine intelligences, organic-looking ships that pulsed softly as if they were alive. Species the Council recognized immediately. Species it had rejected. Haven Station itself was alive with motion. Docking bays cycled smoothly. Cargo moved along open gantries. Translators chirped in a dozen languages as traders negotiated, argued, laughed. A human woman appeared on the fleet commander's screen before any challenge could be issued. She looked young, by human standards, dark-skinned, sharp-eyed, and utterly unafraid. "Welcome to Haven Station," she said. "I am Amara Okonkwo, Trade Administrator. How can the human Concordat assist you today?" The commander struggled for words. You are the humans." "We are," Amara replied with a small smile. "You were banished. Sealed away." "Yes," she said easily. "That didn't work out." The commander's mandibles clicked in disbelief. "You've built an alliance." "A community," Amara corrected. "There's a difference." As the fleet held position, the commander steadied the ships around them more closely. The angular hulls of the Keth, declared too individualistic by the Council. The machinery constructs once labeled non-sentient. The aquatic swimmers, who had never been granted proper docking accommodations in Council space. "You collect the unwanted," he said slowly. "We welcome friends," Amara replied. "Most of them have been unwanted somewhere." The fleet withdrew soon after, carrying recordings, data, and something far more dangerous back to Council space. Proof. The humans had not just survived exile. They had turned it into a foundation. And they were still building. The Galactic Council called it a pacification campaign. 12 battle fleets. 4,000 warships. Weapons capable of cracking moons and boiling atmospheres. High Arbiter Crystal Song of Dawn addressed the commanders from the Citadel of Worlds, her crystalline form glowing with controlled intensity. "The human Concordat represents a destabilizing force," she said. "They gather the rejected and the banished. They undermine Council authority by their mere existence. This campaign will restore order." The commanders saluted. They believed the war would be short. The First Fleet entered Concordat space with weapons hot. Admiral Voss of the Corvith stood on his bridge, watching sensor data flood his displays. There were no defensive lines. No patrol craft. No warning shots. Instead, a single small vessel drifted ahead of the armada. A shuttle. Human-made. Barely armed. "What kind of insult is this?" Voss demanded. "We are being hailed," his communications officer said. "Put it through." A human woman appeared on the screen, calm and unadorned, wearing a gray uniform without insignia. "I am Yuki Tanaka," she said. "Speaker of the Human Concordat. You are entering sovereign space with weapons armed. I ask that you turn back." Voss laughed. "You face 400 warships with a shuttle." "I face you with a warning," Yuki replied. "Turn back, and no one will be harmed." "Destroy that vessel," Voss ordered. Energy lanced through space. The shuttle vanished. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Gone. A chill crept through the bridge. "Slide displacement confirmed," an officer whispered. Voss snarled. "Proceed." The fleet advanced. And then the universe went dark. Across 400 warships, systems failed simultaneously. Engines died. Weapons powered down. Shields collapsed. Only life support remained, humming softly in the darkness. Panic spread through the fleet. What did they do? "We're dead in space. Restore power." Yuki Tanaka reappeared on emergency channels. "I warned you," she said. "Your ships will be escorted to the border and released. Your crews will not be harmed." "You call this mercy?" Voss spat. "We call it restraint," Yuki replied. "Do not return." The fleet was towed, powerless and humiliated, back to Council space. The Second Fleet met the same fate. So did the Third. And the Fourth. Each time, the humans disabled without killing. Each time, crews returned alive, angry, shaken, and carrying stories that spread faster than any Council propaganda. By the Sixth Fleet, sailors refused orders. "Send us anywhere else," they pleaded. "Just not against the humans." The Council had expected war. What it got was something far worse. An enemy that could not be provoked into becoming a monster. And a galaxy beginning to ask why. The humans never fired a killing blow. That was what unsettled the galaxy most. After the Sixth Fleet returned disabled and intact, fear spread through Council space, not of destruction, but of exposure. Every surviving crew told the same story: the humans could have annihilated them. They chose not to. Then the broadcasts began. At first, they appeared as anomalies, unauthorized data packets slipping past Council firewalls, activating screens without permission. Administrators shut them down. Engineers patched the networks. The broadcasts kept coming. Human ships, using slight space relays the Council could not track, injected information directly into planetary systems across the galaxy. Archives opened. Sealed records unlocked. Classified histories spilled into the light. The truth followed. On Corvus Prime, citizens watched footage of the Singing People, a peaceful species erased 800,000 years earlier after refusing Council protection. Official records had called it voluntary assimilation. It was genocide. On Volani worlds, historians discovered their species had once ruled themselves before the Council manipulated succession lines and engineered dependence. Their founding myths were fabrications, carefully edited lies. Dozens of species learned the same lesson. They had not joined the Council. They had been absorbed, reshaped, or silenced. Riots erupted. Councils collapsed. Entire systems declared independence within weeks. Military units refused to enforce orders, unwilling to fight for an institution built on erased graves. High Arbiter Crystal Song of Dawn watched the reports flood into the Citadel of Worlds. Her advisors argued, shouted, begged for censorship, retaliation, anything. It's too late, one finally said. The information is everywhere. The humans had found the Council's greatest weakness. Not its fleets. Its history. For 1,000,000 years, the Council had ruled by controlling the narrative of peace. Humanity had torn that narrative open and let the galaxy see what lay beneath. The Concordat issued no declarations of conquest. No ultimatums. Only a single statement, broadcast openly. We will not rule you. We will not erase you. We will simply refuse to lie. Within a year, the Galactic Council was no longer the center of power in the galaxy. It was an institution struggling to survive its own reflection. And for the first time since humanity stood alone in judgment, the Council requested something it had never offered before. Negotiation. The Citadel of Worlds had not changed. It was still vast. Still ancient. Still suspended at the center of the galaxy like a monument to inevitability. But it felt smaller. When Yuki Tanaka entered the Great Hall, she noticed the empty seats first. Entire tiers once filled with representatives now stood dark and unused. Species had withdrawn, seceded, or dissolved their membership altogether. Others remained only in name, their authority eroded by riots and revolutions back home. 300 years ago, her great-great-grandmother had walked into this chamber as a supplicant. Yuki walked in as an equal. Behind her came 12 delegates, human and non-human alike. A Keth philosopher. A machinery consensus unit. A swimmer envoy suspended in a transparent graph tank. Living proof of what the Council had once rejected. High Arbiter Crystal Song of Dawn waited on the dais, her crystalline form dimmer than the historical recordings suggested. Power had a way of fading when its foundations cracked. Speaker Tanaka, she said. You are acknowledged. Yuki inclined her head politely. High Arbiter. The formality felt almost quaint. You requested negotiations, Crystal Song of Dawn continued. We are prepared to discuss an end to hostilities. Yuki stopped at the center of the hall, the exact place where Elena Vasquez had once stood alone. There are no hostilities to end, Yuki said calmly. You sent fleets. We returned them. Alive. A murmur spread through the chamber. You destabilized the galaxy, an arbiter snapped. You exposed classified. We exposed the truth, Yuki interrupted, her voice firm but controlled. The galaxy destabilized itself when it learned what that truth was. Silence followed. Crystal Song of Dawn steadied her. What do you want, Speaker Tanaka? Yuki reached into her coat and removed a small data crystal, placing it gently on the central podium. These are not demands, she said. They are terms. The crystal activated, projecting a list that scrolled slowly through the air. The quarantine barrier around Earth will be dismantled immediately. Shock rippled through the hall. Our home world has served as your monument for 3 centuries, Yuki continued. That ends now. Crystal Song of Dawn did not object. She could not. Second, Yuki said, all species previously banished or isolated by the Council will be offered full autonomy either within a reformed council or outside it, without retaliation. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Third, Yuki went on, the Council's governing structure will be dismantled. No more permanent high arbiters. No unilateral authority. Representation proportional and consensual. The high arbiter's glow flickered. And finally, Yuki said, her voice steady, those responsible for erased civilizations, forced assimilations, and concealed genocides will stand trial. Publicly. Crystal Song of Dawn rose from her seat. You ask us to judge ourselves. I ask you to acknowledge what you've done, Yuki replied. Peace built on silence is not peace. It's fear. She gestured behind her, to the delegates of the Concordat. You called us dangerous. But when given power, we did not conquer. We did not erase. We built a place for those you discarded. Yuki looked around the hall, meeting alien eyes one by one. You can change, she said. Or you can fade. The final image appeared on the great viewing wall. Thousands of ships surrounded the citadel, not in attack formation, but in witness. Concordat vessels. Independent worlds. Former council members. The galaxy was watching. Crystal Song of Dawn stared at the display for a long time. Then, slowly, she deactivated her authority seal. The Galactic Council, she said, voice resonating through the hall, accepts these terms. The sound that followed was not applause. It was history shifting. The barrier around Seoul did not fall with violence. There was no explosion, no grand flare of energy. The containment field simply dissolved, its equations unraveling as if they had never been certain of themselves to begin with. For the first time in 300 years, the solar system was open. Exploration vessels arrived within days, human ships, Concordat craft, and curious envoys from worlds that had only known Earth as a forbidden system. They found oceans still blue, continents still green, cities preserved like museum pieces waiting for their people to return. No one rushed. Earth had been a home. Then a sacrifice. Now it was a choice. On the old grounds of the United Nations complex, rebuilt and reinforced against time, Yuki Tanaka stood beneath an open sky. Around her gathered a small crowd, historians, engineers, children born on Orcs who had never felt planetary gravity before. This world waited for us, someone said softly. Yuki shook her head. It didn't wait. It endured. The decision was not immediate, nor was it unanimous. Some humans chose to return, reclaiming oceans and forests with care shaped by centuries of exile. Others stayed among the stars, their identities forged in stations, ships, and shared worlds. Humanity did not reconsolidate into a single place again. It didn't need to. Haven Station became one of many nodes of trade, culture, and cooperation scattered across the galaxy. The human Concordat slowly gave way to a broader alliance, where no species ruled and none were silenced. The old Galactic Council was archived, not erased, but studied. Its failures became lessons instead of secrets. And on Earth, a simple marker was placed where the barrier had once been enforced, its inscription translated into 100 languages. They built a cage. We found a door. The galaxy did not become perfect. But it became honest. And somewhere in the vastness of space, new civilizations would one day ask how peace had been rewritten without conquest. The answer would always begin the same way, with a species that refused to stay where it was told to belong. Long after the last High Arbiter faded into history, scholars argued about humanity. Some claimed humans were never dangerous at all. Others insisted they were the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever encountered. Both were wrong. Humans were inevitable. They did not conquer when given power. They did not submit when denied it. They adapted, questioned, and remembered. New civilizations still studied the old records: Earth's banishment, the empty cage, the war that never was. In every academy, one lesson endured above all others. If you build a system that survives only by silencing voices, one day you will meet a species that listens instead. And when young diplomats asked what mistake the Galactic Council had made, their instructors gave the same answer every time. They thought exile was an ending. Out in the stars, human ships still traveled, not as rulers, not as saviors, but as neighbors. Their stations welcomed the strange, the rejected, the unfinished. Because humanity had learned something in the dark between worlds. Freedom isn't taken. It isn't granted. It's built. And the galaxy would never again mistake a cage for peace.